What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
Does your book, film, resource, product, or business change people's lives for the better? Hi, I'm Jackie Lappin, founder of Conscious Media Relations, a unique boutique PR firm that helps you connect with your mind, body, spirit, and conscious lifestyle audience in a big way. We reach 3,500 specialty media and all the key mainstream outlets in the United States. I invite you to explore our radio media tour that connects to 2,600 personal growth radio shows. There is just nothing else like it. Come check out our website and read our rave reviews.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late-night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Patti Conklin, who is a world-class energy healer and much sought-after facilitator, who has shared her experiences and changed lives at hundreds of workshops, lectures, and conferences through the last 2 decades. She's a frequent keynote speaker and presenter at alternative conventions. She is the creator of Colorworks, a visualization process that uses active vibration within your body to release or heal specific symptoms, emotions, or physical challenges. Well, Patti Conklin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Patti, it is great to have you on board today. Now, just tell the audience a bit about yourself to begin with, please.
Well, I have had my gift since birth. My first remembrance of it was 3 years old and having my mother and her friends sitting at the kitchen table having coffee. And I walked in and I looked at her friend and I literally saw a sperm go into an egg and I knew she had just conceived a baby. And how I knew that was a sperm and that was an egg, I have no idea. But I was 3 years old and I was jumping up and down going, "Oh, you're going to have a baby." And they started laughing and she said, "No, I'm not." And as she said that, her whole body shifted. And because I was only 3 years old, I said, "Oh, but the baby's going to die, or you're going to die when the baby's born." And she just kind of freaked out, and my mother freaked out, and 9 months later, her best friend was dead, giving birth. So even at a very young age, I knew that what the world was telling me was true, in my world wasn't. And it was 28 before I actually got tested and found that I had a very high IQ and a very fast brainwave pattern that allows me to see particles instead of solid material. So my world is constantly moving in particles, and that's how I see disease and people and all of my surroundings is particles.
That's pretty difficult to understand for others who don't have that gift, that you see it in particles. If you could reference it to anything, what might it be a potentially look like for others?
If you're watching television and the cable goes out and you get snow, that's my world. And sometimes behind that snow, you can start to see shapes and so forth. So that's my world every day. So, for example, if I'm in Ireland, it's incredibly challenging for me to get around because the vibration of the stones is so high that it literally blinds me. I have to take someone along with me in order to assist me, to tell me that there's a step, to tell me that there's stairs, to tell me I'm walking off a cliff. In everyday life, I live on a houseboat. And when I first started looking at the houseboats, my son would come with me to look at the houseboat, and I couldn't tell the difference between the wood and the water. And so a couple of times he had to catch me as I started to fall into the water.
Right.
And he's like, "I don't think you're going to be able to do this." And I said, "No, I just need to get used to what the wood particle looks like and what the water particle looks like so I can differentiate."
Right, because you're colorblind.
But it's just, yeah, and I'm colorblind.
Yes.
Everything is in grayscale to me.
Wow. Okay, so so because you were born with that, then it's heightened this other ability in you as well. Would you call it a psychic ability?
It's not. It's really, if I had to say, either medical intuitive or clinical savant. I'm incredibly attuned to the human body. But I have the same anxieties as a lot of savants. I don't like to go out around people. I don't like to go to a restaurant by myself or go someplace by myself. And yet when I'm working, if I'm on stage or I'm working with people or if I'm traveling for work, I have absolutely no anxiety.
No.
It just hits me in the personal life. So I'm very attuned in reading the human body, and everything else around me just kind of blends in.
Right. Okay. And what was your upbringing in the sense of religious upbringing as a child?
Yeah, my parents were mostly alcoholics, and there wasn't any upbringing in the church. I had what I considered to be a visitation when I was 7 years old, and I had never heard of God or a father or creator or source, so I just kind of labeled it Father because I heard a male voice. But it told me three things. It told me that 38 to 42 would be my greatest growth years, 42 to 62 would be my greatest contribution, and I could come home then if I wanted to. But that the purpose of my walk would be to teach people to become insubstantial without transitioning. And even though I was a very precocious 7-year-old, I had no idea what that meant. And now later on in life, I feel like it's about helping people understand the emotions that create disease, because disease doesn't create on its own, and or illness. It really has an emotional core. You know, my favorite time as a teenager was just sitting and watching people think and watching the words form in the hemisphere of their brain. and then go into their body and then watch them speak to someone and realize that what they were thinking and what they were speaking were two different things. Now, my sons tease me and say, hey, you may have been just asked to wash the windows and you haven't accomplished that yet. And at 58, I got a few more years to get the windows washed and make sure my bases are covered. But I consider myself kind of a Christian Buddhist kind of combo. But I've worked with Satanists and atheists, and when people call me and they'll ask what denomination I am, I kind of say, it doesn't matter what I am; it only matters what you are, and work within their belief system.
Yeah. So you've got a mixture of Christianity and Buddhism, and potentially they could have come from a past life influence. And they've sort of combined them in this life, which is interesting. And isn't it strange? You talk about what when you was a child there, that when you saw Father, as you called God in that sense, or your understanding of God, you talked about there that it would be in your 40s, when changes would take place. What is that about? When people reach 40s, it's like the new 20s, isn't it? It's like when your life starts.
It really is. It really is. When I was 38 and I was told to leave my job and begin walking this path, those first 4 years, 38 to 42, were just incredible. And yet everything fell into place exactly the way it was meant to. I didn't have to suffer. I didn't have to become poverty stricken. Everything flowed because I listened. I paid attention to what I was being told. But I do think that people, I kind of equate it this way, that people spend birth to about 40 learning to be human. And then it seems like 35, 40 hits, and then they learn how to be spiritual. I think for me, I was backwards. I think 0 to 40, I learned how to be spiritual. And then at 40, I really had to start learning to be human. I had to learn to trust human beings. I had to learn to actually socialize. Those were things that were very, very challenging for me, and literally still are today.
No, okay, that's fair enough. And you can be honest about that as well, which is great that you're still going through that process.
Absolutely.
And okay, so people would class you as a healer, but that role didn't really take place until I believe you was in your 30s, when you were suffering from a lack of self-worth, in a sense you call it.
I did. I had both forms of lupus. I was given both forms of lupus, I think, to be facing death, but also to figure out how to heal myself from it. It's a non-treatable, always fatal disease. And as a Caucasian woman, I had both forms, which is nearly impossible. So I was critically ill for 3 years, and Father showed me how to move color through my body. And I started moving color through my body, and nothing happened. And so I started looking at my life, and I realized that I was always working in PhD positions, but with a high school education. And I never felt worthy. So I was working 100-hour weeks. And people would say to me, you have to take a vacation. And I'd say, I'll take a vacation on my deathbed. And so my body created the deathbed in order to get me to pay attention. And so once I started doing what I term color works and saying, what color do I need to remove my lack of self-worth, increase it by 80%, and remove the lupus, the next day all my symptoms stopped, and within a year my blood work was perfect. And we tested every year, and I've never had any other signs of lupus.
Congratulations.
So, for me, it was really the beginning journey for me.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to be a little bit all over the place here, so just bear with me. Just let's go straight to your technique to heal. What is your technique to heal to begin with?
Well, I always look at the person. I have them ask what's going on personally, professionally, and physically. And just by asking those 3 simple questions of what's going on in their life right now, the body literally, all those particles turn into movies. And I watch the movie of their life. And they say, they may say, well, I've got Crohn's disease. But the body will be showing me the emotional situation that created the Crohn's disease. So then I may say, well, let's go back to age 12. Let's talk about abandonment then, or resentment, or whatever it is, and get them talking about it. And I say, how does that relate to your life now? And they're like, wow, yeah, it's a repeating theme. because the body will start getting sick when the proverbial, straw that broke the camel's back takes place. And that's really what's taking place when that hits, is that people are experiencing an emotion or behavior over and over again. So for me, it's asking those 3 simple questions. Once we get that answered and identified, then I ask them to use color or tone, but typically color over the phone. What color do you need to remove, let's say it's abandonment in the intestinal tract? And they'll start to breathe in through their nose and bring color in. Now, some people don't see it and they freak out. It's like, no, your body knows it. And typically, the sicker you are, the darker the colors will be: black, browns, reds, as it starts coming in through your feet and coming up through your body, because we're looking for frequency. All illness really is a frequency that's out of alignment with the rest of your body. And so what we're really doing is putting the frequency back in place with the rest of your body so that you can heal. And so it's not a matter of whether you like the color or have an emotional connection to the color. The color is simply providing the frequency necessary in order to heal the body.
Because all colors resonate at different frequencies, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So just going, so for those who may not be able to have an appointment with you, just going back to that, if we've got a certain disease, how would we relate that back then? I mean, to what emotional issue it is. No matter how truthful we can be with ourselves. So obviously we've got to be honest with ourselves what we think that might be. But how do we get to that point of what that might be? Or is it?
It's very easy. What I suggest people do is to do color works, and ask the question of, what color do I need to bring into my consciousness, the emotion behind this disease? And to just journal and do it every day for 10 days without looking back at what you wrote the day before. And as you do that, at the end of 10 days, read through what you wrote, and there will be a common theme every single day. And take that as the emotion to begin with. After that 10 days, look at what's standing out the most, whether it's resentment or judgment or anger or fear. Take that to begin with, and then say, what color do I need to remove whatever emotion? People can also use it if they're in pain. What color do I need to reduce my pain by 90%? And utilize it that way. So, and the other thing that's really important is, I know it'd be later over there, but at 8 o'clock every Wednesday night, there's a half-hour free healing session that's run by my practitioners, where people can go on and be a part of that, and they do color works and push energy, and it's a free service we provide every Wednesday.
Okay, and is that through your website, is it? You can...
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, they go to the website, and the practitioner will be alive, and they can actually type in what's going on with them that's private to the host, and they'll work with that energetically while doing color works or tone works.
Right. Well, your website's just been flashing up on the screen along with your book as well. So that must be like a streamed service that they do then.
Yes, it's a live stream service that we do every Wednesday night.
Wonderful. Oh, that's your way again of giving back as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Really believe in that.
Yes, yeah, and being of service. That's a big thing that the Casey principles have taught me this past year. That it's really important to be of service.
Yes, absolutely.
Which you are
Absolutely.
doing, yeah. Which you are doing automatically with what you do. And we all do in our own ways, no matter what job we've got. Sometimes but it's just nice to focus back on that. Now in your work, you would say that there potentially might be a soul contract in place as to why the disease is there in a sense.
Yes. And I have a belief that if the soul contract is to experience the disease, then you're going to have it. My goal then becomes, how do I help you be at peace with that? And, out of everything that's bad, good always comes out of it. So let's find the good that comes out of whatever it is you're experiencing. We'll get people calling the office all the time, and they'll be saying, the doctors have given me 6 months to live. And if I look at their body and there's suitcases sitting on their left shoulder, then I know the soul is leaving. And so I'll say to them, your doctors are correct. Now, how can I help you be at peace with the thought of passing? And so then the work really becomes helping them be at peace and have quality of life for while they're here. And then there's other times that the suitcases aren't there, and I'll say, yeah, I need to talk to your doctor. We've clearly missed something because you're not going to die. And then take it that way. So it really, everything we do is being of service and paying back. And like you said, doesn't matter what industry we're in, whether we're a cashier at the grocery store, we're still providing service.
Yeah, I can't. I try to put myself in that situation sometimes. If I knew that my time was really soon, what would be going through my head? What would truthfully be going through my head?
Yeah, there's so much fear. There's so much fear about what's going to happen when I die. I mean, what is that process going to be like? What am I going to see? And really, whatever people's belief system is, their true belief system, not the fear that they're going through at death, but their true belief system is what appears to them when they pass. I sit with 30 to 50 people a year who want me there at their crossing. And
That's
and
nice.
according to their belief, sometimes you'll have Jesus there, sometimes you'll have family and relatives there. I've sat with Satanists where Satan has come to get them. I've sat with atheists where there's just particles. It's really amazing, absolutely amazing to see the depth of what people believe and how it materializes at the time of their passing,
Well,
to help their soul leave their body.
isn't that so powerful what you've just said there? Because what you're saying in a sense that if we create all those different experiences, there's no one defined, this is the way it is. It's a different truth for everyone, a different experience that they're going to experience for everyone. I'm sure
Absolutely.
the process, once they've passed on and over not time, because I doubt there is time where they go, but over a distance that they have to travel, that the experience becomes a bit similar in the sense that, okay, well, we went with Satanism to begin with, but I guess there may be just love actually on this side.
Yeah.
But isn't it crazy what you said there in the sense that, they manifested that? So why wait till we die to just manifest what we want? In that sense, why not use that to manifest the life we want now?
That's right, exactly. I mean, that's just such a powerful statement that you just made, because it's so true. Why aren't you just doing it now instead of waiting until you pass? And I'll hear the same thing from people. Well, in 2 years I'll retire and then I'll do this. It's like, live your life now. Because you're right, when people cross, they cross into what their belief system is, but then over time, it all becomes energy again, and they're on to their next sojourn. So just because somebody believes in Satanism this lifetime doesn't mean that their soul goes to some deep, dark place that's unattainable by source. It just means that they're going to have that experience when they cross, and then it eventually feeds back into everything that is, which is particles from source. And then they just move on to their next adventure.
Yeah, I mean, this is why, that I've interviewed a lot of near-death experiences, and those who are heavily religious, who've had a near-death experience where they've gone to a very dark place to begin with, been saved by Jesus. Jesus took them to heaven or home, whatever you may want to call it. We've all come from there, probably. Yet those in the religious circles will then stick by that and say, well, look, because you've called out to Jesus, he saved you. It's the only way forward. Blah de blah de blah. Kevin, you're a shit interviewer for not, capturing that moment and trying to get him to think the way you want to think.
Yeah.
But it does come down to that. I still believe in that it is down to you're creating that experience. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and there's no wrong experience. I mean, I think that's the important thing to remember.
Yes,
is that there's no wrong experience, because it doesn't matter which way you're believing as you cross. Ultimately, at the end, you're going to end up being where everybody is. So the way you choose to go there is your choice, but ultimately you're going to be where you're meant to be, which is with source.
Yes.
And there's only one source. Without our label.
Yeah, as far as we know right now, on a scale of infinity and infinitive possibilities, who knows?
Who knows? That's for sure.
Yeah, but this sort of ties into what you were saying to begin with at the start of the interview, when you were saying that thoughts create health in a sense, and with the health status that you may be in now. So just touch on that as well, where your work's gone in that sense.
I have a belief system. I've never been trained by anyone. Everything that I've learned has been observation of humanity. I've been to 64 countries, and I watch cultures and beliefs and how we store and how disease creates and so forth within the body. So I have a belief that at one time, there was this Big Bang, if we want to go with the Big Bang theory, but that source broke off into billions and quadrillions of individual souls, and that those souls contracted in that second everything that they would ever experience as an individual soul before it goes back home. And I think that what happened was we came to this planet as high vibrating beings that didn't have form. And as we began developing emotion, we began developing emotions that were less than unconditional. We started developing conditional emotions. And as we started developing conditional emotions, it slowed down our frequency. And as it slowed down our frequency, we started taking shape and form. And as we started taking shape and form, over a period of time, we started slowing down to the extent where we no longer were in sync with the universe. And then we added on what people call the chakra system, the system outside of the body to stay in line with the universe. And over the last 5,000 years, we've managed to muck it up. And so my work is literally working with that subtle energy field, the original energy field, which in science we call the immune system. And so when you have a thought, a behavior that's conditional, let's say, we've all gotten in arguments with people. And maybe we're walking away and our head hurts or our stomach hurts or all of a sudden our knee starts hurting. Something in our body becomes uncomfortable. And it's literally our body saying, hey, you just stored a conditional emotion in me and I don't want it. And so it's really watching your words, because your body's storing every single piece of it. And it doesn't know when you're play acting. It doesn't know when you're telling a white lie. It's recording everything as truth. And so what happens if we have a behavior, let's say we have abandonment early in life, we have a parent that dies. And throughout our lifetime, we have different things happen and we always go back to abandonment. Well, your body can only store so much in that area that you put the abandonment in. So ultimately, it's going to create a disease process in order to get our attention. And it's not like it's deliberately choosing. It's just there's no more energy flow through there. And so we've become so good with our technology to put labels on things that all of a sudden our body will create that label. But if you really think about it, think back 150 years ago, before we had microscopes. We had a bum knee, we had a bad back. They were very generic disease processes. Now, if we have a woman who's fourth generation with breast cancer in the family, there's going to be a fear that she will get breast cancer. And just that fear alone of receiving breast cancer is enough to create the breast cancer. So it's really being careful of looking at how are you speaking, what's your emotions with your words. And if you're going into fear and conditionality, at some point your body's going to say, enough, I can't take anymore, and something will happen.
Yes, and you talk about in your book as well, you say that, and this is just paraphrasing this just briefly, so bear with me, you say that, once the disease process has begun, one way through this is to make better choices, be aware of the positive aspects of any situation, ask yourself what you've learned, remove thought patterns that aren't to your emotional benefits, including the unknown fears and outdated self-protective programs currently running in your subconscious through cellular cleansing. It's almost like, erasing your tape that says, I'm not worthy, I'm this, my life's terrible, I'm unlovable, no one's going to love me, whatever these patterns may be. That's quite powerful.
It really is. It's really understanding that you have so much choice and you have so much control over how you're really looking at your life and what's taking place. Cellular cleansing is a process that I developed after ColorWorks in order to help the body be able to release 50 to 70% of all of the emotions at one time versus taking a year and working on them individually. But it's understanding that you can always make a positive. Let's say you wake up in the morning and your back is really hurting, and your partner or spouse says to you, how are you feeling this morning? If you say, wow, I feel awful, my back hurts so bad, your body's response is going to be, okay, I could do that for you.
Yes.
But if you say, you know what, thank you for asking, in 10 minutes, I'm going to feel terrific, then that's the instruction that you're giving your body, is in 10 minutes, you're going to feel terrific. And if you just understand your ability to change how you speak, everything can be said with love and respect. And if you're loving and respecting your body, and even in thought process, goodness, I mean, if we're standing in line and the cashier is taking a long time checking people out, and we're, late for work, and we're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this person's just taking so slow, and, they look horrible today, and look at that blouse, it's ugly. Your body's all taking it internally. They're not getting it, you're getting it. And so even in your thought processes, you are the one that's getting the information.
Wow.
But if you you don't know what that person's going through, maybe they had a sick child all night, maybe their grandmother died. We're making judgments. We cast a lot of judgments on people when we have no idea what they're going through. And if we can stop ourselves from doing that, gosh, think how much clearer your body would be and how much more we'd get along in life.
Oh, you've hit the nail so much on the head there. We judge so easily. We judge and we don't know what the other's going through.
That's right.
Someone may come across as a bit of an ass, right? Unfortunately, sometimes, right? But, when we look at it, maybe they've given us an opportunity to forgive in that moment. Maybe everything that happens to us in those kind of senses is a gift, and we just don't even understand it as being so.
So true. It is a gift. It is a gift. It's a gift about how to look at another human being. I always say, you know what? None of us know our own path. How on earth can we judge somebody else? We don't know what their path is. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know what's going on. That's between they and source, whoever that is. And so I think that when people can let go, start letting go of their judgments. I mean, honestly, I've never understood this, how women or men can stand around and critique what someone's wearing. What earthly good does it do to do that? And yet we do it all the time, or whether the food was good or the food was bad. Be thankful that you're being fed. Be thankful that you have clothes. Don't go into the negative. But, when we look at, how easy it is to tear something down versus to build something up, it's a lot easier for people to go into a negative state of being versus a positive. And I just encourage people so strongly to create the positive and not the negative, and to really catch what you're thinking and what you're saying. Because I kind of view it this way. In metaphysics for so many years, we said, the spirit is the most important, and the mind is the second most important, and the body is the temple that houses those two. I like to think of it a little bit differently. The spirit is the most important, the soul, but your body is the vehicle in which soul speaks. And your mind is the least important, because the mind allows you to go into the I can'ts, I'm fearful, I'm not qualified. It allows us to go into all of this negative processing. If we just pay attention that it's us, our soul, and our body is speaking through our soul, we'll feel so much better.
Yes, absolutely. And there was a question I was going to ask you there, but it's just it's run away from my head right now. So, but no, I heartily agree with what you're saying there. I suppose sometimes though that we can have baggage from a past life, and it may not be the way it may not be too obvious in that sense that that's where it's coming from. It's not so much, something that's being created from a childhood experience or whatever it may be, but actually it comes from a much deeper level than that.
It can come from a past life, and it certainly can come from parental programming, even in the womb. I think where I differ from a lot of practitioners is, even if it's a past life story that's coming forward, you still have full capability to change that and to learn from that past life, because as soon as you learn the lesson from the past life carryover, it dissipates, it goes away. So if somebody's struggling with money issues, financial issues, and they say, well, I had a past life reading and I was a nun in a former life and I took a vow of poverty and that's why I can't make money in this lifetime, I call BS on it. It's like, okay, so you understand that, so now you can let it go and be financially. You're using it as an excuse not to better yourself in this lifetime. And I've had to call many a person out throughout the years, the 20 years that I've been doing this now, of saying, no, that's not always the case. If it's a past life lesson, it may be a disease process, but free will is this, in my mind. You can be as happy as you want or as miserable as you want, but you're still going to walk the path. So even if it's a challenging path, you can still make it a happy path. It's all up to you. It's all up to you on how you're going to view your circumstances.
Yes, and what I like about your work as well is you're sort of bridging together spirituality and science. I like that.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing in science that can't be explained spiritually, and there's nothing spiritually that can't be explained in science. I think our goal as a human race is to learn to blend those two and stop separating those two, because we need to, we've got phenomenal technology. We really do. We've got incredible technology. But people have a tendency, if they're holistic or spiritual or whatever, they don't want to use the technology. And I'm like, no, for goodness sakes, use the technology. If a woman calls in the morning and says, gee, I found a lump in my breast, do I have breast cancer? My response is going to be, go get a mammogram, go get an ultrasound, and then come back with the results. Because the more specific we can be, the quicker we can heal it. And I think that that's what technology was developed for, was the ability to fine-tune exactly where it is in your body, the situation that's going on. And then it's your responsibility to go in there and to actually start shifting the frequency by using color or tone.
I love your use of words as well in the book. I mean, just obviously, just to finish what you were just saying there as well, something that's just come to me is apparently, in times forgotten, sound healing was something that was commonly used in a sense. So. And frequency healing as well. So, I have come across stuff like this before, or mentions of it, and that's what I like about your work as well. It's almost like bringing lost knowledge forward in a sense, if it was lost.
Absolutely.
So that's very interesting.
For me, I think the universe started in tone. I think what we consider to be God or source or creator, whatever we want to call it, actually evolved out of frequency, out of tone. And became conscious. So I think if we understand that everything that has a frequency has the capability of becoming conscious.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything. Even those things that we think, well, it's impossible that could have consciousness. And why would consciousness not want to be whatever it may not be? That's not non-human.
That's
But
right.
well,
That's our own limitation of thought. I mean, I can remember being 3 years old and my brother taking me in the woods, and he was 4 years older than me, and he would wait so patiently because I'd be walking past a tree and it would be talking, it would be murmuring, and I would just kneel down and I'd put my ear up against the tree and he'd say, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "The tree's talking to me. The stones are talking to me. Books talk like crazy." Edgar Casey was great at that. He'd
Oh
put
yes.
his books underneath his pillow at night. And when I was 12 years old, my teacher was telling me about Edgar Casey, and I started doing the same thing. I was living pretty much on my own at the age of 12, and I doubled up my junior and senior year so I could get off the streets and graduate from high school.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I would just hold my books to my chest, and that's how
Wow.
I learned.
Incredible, incredible. And we can't be too judgmental on ourselves sometimes when we're going through a hard time, or when we're being tested, because I think life always tests us. And you use the word as well, the spiritual human in transition, or shit, as you call
Yes.
it, right? Yeah, which I love actually. We're all going to experience growth in difficult ways sometimes, really painful ways, whether it's a loss of someone where the shift happens,
That's
or
right.
whether it's a loss of a job, or whatever it may be, financial problems. We can't. We're all going to go through it, so we can't escape it, can we?
No, we really can. And it doesn't matter how, quote, evolved we are. We have the choice of how long we're going to stay in it. But we are going to stay in it. And, a year and a half ago, I had 12 loved ones pass away within a 4-month period. And it was tough. And I was dealing with hospice and flying to different states for my father and my ex-husband, and just, attempting to help everyone.
Yeah.
And plus my own workload. So, I got through everything, and all the deaths stopped, and, I was done officiating funerals. And I gave myself 3 weeks, and then I rented a boat out on a different lake, and I just went and tied myself up for a week on the boat. And the boat tied up, not me. And lots of food, and just sat and processed it and cried and went through my grief, because even though I think I have a fairly good idea what happens when people cross, because I've been doing it for 20 years, you still have your own loved ones that you've got to deal with. And, my sons very lovingly said, do you want us to come out with you and sit with you? And they would have. But we all have our shit to go through. And if we understand that when everything is falling apart and life just seems to be so overwhelming, if all we do is just continue to breathe through it, you'll literally feel a whoosh, and you're through it. And when
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of it and I feel like I can't handle anymore, and boy, so many of us are in that place in the world, all you do is you remind yourself, the harder the situation is, the bigger the growth that you're experiencing. And so what I do is just remind myself that I'm going through a phenomenal growth. I do my Patty Pity Party. I get Oreo cookies and a glass of milk, and I climb in
Love it.
bed and I cry and beat the pillow if I have to, eat my
Yep.
Oreos, drink my milk, go to sleep, and tomorrow's a new day.
Yes, yes, that's right. No, thank you very much for sharing that. I think that will help people. Do you know what? Yeah, absolutely. As well, I mean, do you ever come? I mean, is there anybody that you've not been able to help, would you say? And if so, why?
Yeah, there's a couple of people a year who I'll get on the phone with, and all of a sudden I'll hear no. I don't have the right frequency. I think as a practitioner, our job is to live our truth. And that doesn't mean that when I come into the office at 10:30 in the morning, all of a sudden I become this premier healer and I stay in unconditional love all day. My job is to stay in unconditional love 24 hours a day. And when I'm not, I have to sit back and question why I'm not. And the more that I can do that, the more that I can truly be unconditional, the higher my frequency range is. But every once in a while, I'll get a person who's outside of my frequency range. And it's the example would be this. when I'm merging with the disease, I have to come in at the disease level and then slowly amp it up in order to get it to shift frequency. If I'm not able to come in at the frequency that they're at, then I'm not going to be able to help them. And that's why some people will go to a practitioner and they have a spontaneous healing and they tell all their friends about it. And the friend who's really ill goes to that person and goes, well, I didn't get any help. Well, you didn't get any help because they weren't the correct frequency for you. So it's really important for people to understand, go with your heart when you're picking a practitioner, not the marketing, not the slick advertising. Does that person feel right for you? And if they feel right for you, chances are they'll have the frequency necessary to assist you. So there's a couple of people a year that I'm just not the right frequency, and pretty much I know who I'm going to send them to in order to get some healing.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. And when you're healing, I mean, with what the services that you offer, can anybody from anywhere in the world contact you, or can it be over Skype, for example, such services, or is it got to be face to face? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Sorry, can you hear me now?
I can.
Sorry about that. We had a bit of a breakdown there. Sorry.
No problem.
I'll just edit that. Don't worry. Yeah, and one other question as well is, when you're giving services, the services that you provide, do they have to be in your presence to offer the healing, or can you do it remotely, like over Skype, for example, or over the telephone?
Absolutely. Most of my work is done through Skype and over the phone. For 30 years, I've traveled 100,000 miles a year teaching and working with people. And I'm finally at the point now, and technology's at the point where I can typically stay home. I get some critical cases every once in a while that I have to be in person with. But 95% of it, I can just do from home and do from Skype. Because again, in science, if we look back at quantum physics and particle theory, there's no such thing as space and time. And so if I'm working with somebody in Portugal, as far as I'm concerned, they're sitting here in the living room with me.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, but like you say, when you go beyond the idea of the separation between space and time, and you get down to the particle level as well, anything's possible in some sense. Yeah, okay, and also your book as well. I didn't get the title as well. The day God's train stopped.
Stopped. Yes,
Yeah.
it was. And the publisher and I had a long talk about that. But what happened was, before my 38th birthday, remember I had said when I was 7, I had my first set of instructions.
That's
and
right.
Before my 38th birthday, I had a dream. What's interesting to me is when I'm working, Father appears to me in real time, in the moment, telling me what to do. But in my personal life, I always find it odd, but Jesus will appear to me in my dream. And Jesus is not someone that I really relate to. I think I relate more to Buddha. But Jesus will come to me in my dreams when something personal is going to happen. And so right before my 38th birthday, I had a dream. And I was on a train. And the train, all sorts of paranormal stuff was happening on the train. And people were really, really scared. And all of a sudden, the train stopped. And I looked out the window and I realized it was off the tracks. And all of a sudden I turned around, everybody was gone, and Jesus and Mother Mary were standing there. It was the first time I'd ever seen Mother Mary in a dream. And Jesus looked at me and he said, we'll be giving you a choice. You can either get off the train at this time and live your life the way you'd like to, or we will put the train back on the track and you will be of service to our Father until you cross. And I thought and hesitated for a moment, and I asked him to put the train back on the tracks. So for me, it was just a very strong commitment that I was making in that moment to be of service for the rest of my life and do the work that Father had asked of me when I was 7.
That's very beautiful, that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. In respects of some of the cases that you've dealt with. Obviously, you've dealt with a lot of people from all walks of life with all sorts of different issues, in a sense, and diseases. But what are some of the transformational cases you've dealt with, would you say? What are some of those that sort of stick out in your mind?
Yeah, there was a woman at my 40th birthday, so it would have been 18 years ago. She had breast cancer, uterine cancer, and bone cancer. She was 38 years old. She had a 6 and 8-year-old. And she called the office asking me to come to San Francisco to help her. And I said, no, I can't. My sons were putting together a huge birthday party for me, and I couldn't go. And Father spoke gently in my ear and said, you will go. And I went, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm coming to San Francisco. And she had set us up to work at a monastery. She was a Catholic, and she got us a room in the monastery. And she had been going through, chemo and radiation and alternative practices for years. And the thing that happens with bone cancer with me is that it actually transmutes into my body. So bone cancer, I'm always at the hospital on a morphine drip when I'm working with someone. And the first night we worked, I asked the nuns to take me to the hospital to get a morphine drip. And she went with me, and the doctor who was there in the emergency room knew her. And he just didn't even question. She said, she's taking my cancer. And he believed it, and he put me on a morphine drip, and he told her and the nuns to go back to the monastery and come back and get me in the morning. And he sat with me all night, and he kept putting hot blankets over me because I was in so much pain. And by the morning, everything had dissipated. I went back to the monastery. I finished my work with her. I flew home on my birthday, and I had kind of fallen asleep. And I looked up, and the flight attendant was there with this huge glass of milk and this huge chocolate chip cookie. And he said, would you like this? And I said, yes. And I looked at my watch, and it was the moment of my birthday, of my birth. And so I ate those, got home. A week later, she called, and she was giggling because the cancer had been increasing up her spine to such an extent that every week they were doing x-rays. And the doctor had come in that morning and said, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to stay. We've got to do the x-rays again. And she said, why? And he said, because the film's bad. And she said, what do you mean the film's bad? And he said, there's nothing there. And her cancer was completely gone from everywhere. And she lived another 10 years, and she developed a non-cancerous tumor in her cervical collar, in her spine, and it was paralyzing her. And I flew out to be with her. And as I walked in the room, her paralysis would leave. And as soon as I'd go back to my hotel, the paralysis would return. And I knew that she wasn't going to recover from it. She had 10 years of wonderful health. And they went in to do surgery. And they said, there's a good chance we'll make you a quadriplegic, but you'll be alive. And she said, okay. And she came out. She had no quadriplegia, no nothing. And 10 days later, threw a blood clot and just passed instantly. But, she always sticks in my heart, just, her conviction and just, my hesitation to go. I wanted to have a birthday party. And Father just ever so gently nudging me and saying, no, you're going to go work with her. So there have been cases like that throughout my lifetime where if I'm told I have to go do it, then there's always a miracle.
Absolutely, there is, and that's the thing. It's incredible, and thank you for sharing that with us again. Yeah. What would you say then? Because obviously we're getting to the end of the interview here as well, because it's the time's just flown by, and we've just about scratched the surface. And of course, just before I ask the last question as well, we've been putting up your website and books. Sorry, your book as well. But is there anything that would make it easy for people to get in contact with yourself, just to confirm we've got the right details for you?
Yep. The website is patticonklin.com, and that's PATTICONKLIN.com. Or they can call the office at 404-474-0086 and talk to Sandra or Vicky. And we're actually launching a new website in about 2 weeks, so there'll be more product and more information. They can get the book in the UK or in the United States through Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, and digital or soft cover. So, and there's a wonderful team I've got in place, the people who have their own gifts, who have also been trained by me, who are taking some of the load at this point because I can't keep up with everyone
Sure.
who calls.
No.
But they're absolutely awesome, and we stay in touch. If they're quite a little bit unsure about how to handle something, then the phone call comes in and we work through it. Or I'll talk to the person, their client, myself. But it's been a wonderful journey. And if it ends in 4 years, I keep telling my sons it's been incredible. And if I get to hang around after 4 years, then I'll still be here working.
Oh, I think you've got a lot of work to do just yet. I get that feeling. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what would you say then, if you could sum it up, is the most important message of your work?
Yeah, to become non-judgmental, to really look at life and pay attention to yourself, pay attention to your words, pay attention to how you're thinking about things, and stop the judging. And that in and of itself will start changing the world. Praying for people in other parts of the world really doesn't affect us that much. If we're working on ourselves and then letting our heart center open up and expand throughout the world so that the souls out there who vibrate with you can make use of it, that's the most important thing in the world. Not just verbally saying words. It's really continuing to unconditionally love yourself.
And thank you for that message. And I'll just say as well, it matters not where you are in the world, what cultural background you come from, or what belief you have. This works, and if this is something that resonates with you, this will work for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you believe what you believe. That's what's important.
As long as you've got your truth, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Patti,
Totally.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show, and don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.